The City of London and finance is obviously a massive part of Britain's economy, its tax base, and importantly, it's a big surplus in terms of trade. So can you just give a sense of what this means for the city in your view?
So obviously in 2007, 2008, the world's financial community and the banks at the epicenter led the world into a pretty calamitous economic collapse. One of the silver linings of that, I think, was the G20 pulling together. And what the G20 said with respect to the banks was, one, we all need to re-regulate this industry, whether it's Brussels or London or New York or Washington or Tokyo. We need to govern the financial system so that we don't repeat the errors of 2007, 2008. But they also said that as we re-regulate the banks, what's very important is that we don't cut off the free flow of capital, that we don't, as we re-regulate the financial industry, create barriers that inhibit capital flowing around the world. Because I think that there was a recognition that the free flow of capital, in one way, is the oxygen of commerce. And you shut that off, which actually was what happened in the financial crisis, and you create the economic calamity that we saw. The view that I have is post-Brexit, the reality is the European Union and the UK will both recognize the primary importance of keeping the free flow of capital. And to threaten to cut off the free flow of capital in order to try to gain a certain advantage in terms of financial employment would be very contrary to what they all agreed with the Global 20, and I think contrary to how the governments have actually acted over the last 7 or 8 years. So much like what happened post the financial crisis and the regulation of banks, I think will happen again as we reestablish this order on the back of Brexit. And they will not cut off the free flow of capital. The other thing that I think is important to remember is that free flow of capital. There are centers of the capital markets, and London is definitely one of them. It would be incredibly simplistic and wrong to believe that London is a capital of the capital markets globally, or a capital, because of a couple of banks. There is an entire ecosystem in the UK which drives its importance as a financial system. There is a legal system that has a history and a precedent, which is critically important for the efficient operations of a capital markets. One sort of fact point that in the United States, at the height of the financial crisis, there was about $3.5 trillion of defaulted debt. The U.S. bankruptcy system renegotiated that $3.5 trillion in 18 months. It was an extraordinary accomplishment. Perhaps the only other legal system in the world that could replicate that sort of accomplishment is the UK. Now, Europe is very cognizant of that, and one hopes that they make progress in getting that. But I think between the understanding that the free flow of capital is important for commerce, whether it's in Frankfurt, Paris, or London, will be a guiding principle as we renegotiate the separation of the UK. And then also recognizing that this ecosystem that drives the capital markets is so complex, it's not going to be determined by one bank CEO saying we're going to move 1,000 people here, 1,000 people there. So uncertainty is a challenge that we all face. But the banking industry actually has been facing this uncertainty since 2008. And last time I checked, they had a pretty good fourth quarter.